Welcome to Future of Fandom, the podcast where leagues, teams, and federations learn how to turn passive viewers into loyal superfans through gamification, loyalty, and next-gen engagement. Let's build what's next together.
Hi, I'm Sam Westberg, CRO and co-founder of LiveLight, and welcome back to the Future of Fandom. My guest today is Paul Kerrison, head of Generative AI innovation at ITV, and his story starts not with a brief from the top, but with a chance conversation on a bench and a set of demos he built himself that stopped the rule. The role he holds today didn't exist before he made the case for it. Paul's vision is simple but radical. Broadcast content shouldn't be just something you watch. It should be something you participate in. On-demand stats, interactive characters, content fans can remix and make their own. If you want to understand where broadcasting is heading with AI and what is getting in the way, that is the conversation. Paul also runs the Creative AI Network, a 3,000-strong community of AI content creators in the UK. Well worth checking out if this conversation resonates with you. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Future of Fandom. Today, we're very happy to welcome Paul Kerrison on our podcast. Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Getting a bit of a respite from the sunshine that we found for the last week. Yeah, we're pretty good.
It's been a tough time throughout Europe. But yeah, great. Look, really happy to have you on our podcast. Can you give our audience a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah, my name is Paul Kerrison. I work at ITV. I work across studios and the streaming section. I sit centrally, and I look at generative AI and how it can help our business. And I kind of sit at kind of the research end and frontier bit, and look where we can, help the company move forward, do something better creatively, or find some efficiencies or maybe savings. All angles, and then show that to the business. And I let the business go with that. And we've done a fair few things over the last, 3 years. This journey's been going on.
Yeah, you've been definitely one of the early adopters, right? A lot of businesses are starting to look at the deployment of AI inside their organization. But you started deep diving into it 3 years ago, as you said. Like, what made you decide for your career to, change that and focus on that AI piece? And also, one other question at the same time, you mentioned Gen AI. I would have to say that you're interested in other elements of the AI as well beyond Gen AI. So happy to understand a little bit why specifically Gen AI, and is it a prerogative inside the organization or just a specific field that you're keen on deep diving on your side?
So the company have always kind of looked at AI. We've had a department that kind of did traditional machine learning. The Gen AI side part of it, why we're looking at that and why did I start doing so? I've been a business analyst and a production manager and worked in television all my career. Maybe this undersells me, but it was basically really simple. ChatGPT got released and I looked at it and had this kind of what the F moment and was like, oh, this is powerful. Well, I can do tickets in this or redo emails. Mentioned it at work. A couple of people were interested, but not many. There was kind of a lot of like naysayers about it, or of kind of people just
Happy to criticize it.
yeah. And I got hold of an API key for like Anthropic and ChatGPT early on, and just started playing around with it and sitting in my bedroom with a friend of mine as well, and like working out to like use like LangChain and Pinecone and vectorize like small PDF documents and kind of understand that. And I built a little tool for my son's nursery. They used to send out these newsletters, and they were great, but like English was a bit poor. So I said, "Oh, I can." I didn't tell him what his name. I was like, "I can help you reword these," and I kind of spent ages trying to spend like probably a solid week trying to do it, like figure out how I can like break it all down and make it sense, and then send them it back. And then we got it working. I did that for them. I was like, "Oh, this is so much powerful. What else could we do?" And I got into kind of the image generation, looking at that, and then I had like a chance meeting with someone senior at ITV outside. I think I was having a sandwich on a bench or something, and they said they were speaking to legal about AI and potential risks, and I said I'd been using Llama and some other tools. Oh, you seem to know a lot about it. Why don't you do a talk? So I came in and did this talk to a bunch of staff. Okay, I got a bit of popularity. It kind of went viral around the company. And I think then the CEO was like, "Oh, what else can you do?" Like challenged us to do something. So I'm not going to say exactly what I did, but we did a promo. We replicated a TV show which had like a huge visual effects budget, and we set up an agentic workflow. Before there was even a term, we were calling it multi-agents, and multi-prompts. It depends on what you mean by agentic. I get that there's different like levels of it. And we set that up, and then we had to present this to all of the C-suite, and I think they thought they took us to like a fancy hotel. I think they thought we were going to be there for 5 minutes, and I'd say AI, and then they saw what we were doing and were kind of blown away by it. This was really early on. This was like what ChatGPT was released in like November or October, and this was before Christmas. I remember it being like cold and wet, and we did this presentation. They were all blown away and like, oh wow, what? And then they were like, right, you're now doing this full time. This is your role. And that was it.
Sounds like you were excited enough to run with it.
Yeah. I didn't think it was like a pitch for a role or anything. Since then, we've got a little team and we've been looking at it, and kind of the journey began from that day. And why I'm interested in GenAI specifically, I think just because it's quite easy to pick up, and a lot of parts of the business can understand it and use it quickly, and there's a lot of quick wins there. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit you can like sweep up. So yeah, since then we've been looking at, we kind of started a governance really early on of like how we should approach these tools, and that's always changing. I think that's the one thing people seem to forget, or maybe it's a change in culture now of kind of hitting on two angles, but it's constantly evolving and there's new skills all the time. And I personally believe the only skill worth having in this kind of new field is the ability to learn and move along. So all that kind of like vectorization I did like 3 years ago is now still important, but it's not so important for like an A4 document anymore, like that kind of, but it's all kind of understanding it and moving along. I think that's the great piece of what you've got. And a lot of people always seem to think there's like an instruction manual to this. And I guess there always maybe has been for often tools like, I don't know, how do I do this? How do I do that? Click here, and click here. This is not that. So we set up this kind of governance. So all our tools were safe. And then we looked at which tools we wanted to use. We haven't really planted our flag in one tool, I guess, but kind of tried to. And then we kind of started experimenting around the business. So we set up like training. We had for a while, we had like prompt training, like basic prompt training, which I think is kind of gone now a little bit, but that kind of slow setup to get that around the company and get people using it and looking at it. And we had like kind of a special day where we found other people. We started, everything's been kind of organic. Like we started a AI champions network. Now I think every company has this, but it was kind of just.
I was going to say, just looks like you went the whole entrepreneurial route where there was like, okay, we're assigning Paul to AI just because he's keen and he's showing us cool stuff. And now you have to go find your own champions to approach it like a low level, because obviously there's the overarching structure where you have to have governance and like be tied to legal, etc. But I think the most important part is probably what you said, is not so much being technical, but having appetite and curiosity, because the reality of AI 3 years ago must be so radically different than what you guys are playing with right now.
Yeah, it is. So we got this champions network right across the company where we've found people or brought people in, and we've learned off each other in different departments of like branding and like streaming. What got together? I'm like, oh, we could like do something. And it's been really interesting. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, and been trying to kind of lead it. I feel like my kind of main abilities are kind of spotting trends and a huge mess. And then I'm trying to work that out and be like, right, these connect. Let's head in that direction. But it's been very. I think ITV have took it as we're almost acting like a bit like a startup on it, where we can kind of part startup, part kind of like huge kind of structural organization. But yeah, we did. And then we started with one of our production companies. We like sat with them, all the big ones, and we were kind of working out if we could use it to help them ideate. And it was really interesting, like having it almost listen in to like a big group that were kind of, so they were kind of trying to come up with TV show ideas, I guess. and they play games and do different things. And then the AI was listening to it. And then afterwards, we were like asking it questions, and a lot of it was rubbish, to be honest. But it did help. It's like, even when it's like awful, there's something in there that like sparks an idea in someone and then pushes them maybe further than they'd realize. But if you just took the kind of initial kind of ideation or notes that it came out with, you wouldn't get anywhere. But if you then move that along with three people, you kind of move to somewhere else you might not have went. So that was interesting. And then we did with our commercial department, and not all people are accepting this. Like our commercial team, we made I think we might have done the first AI advert broadcast on TV. Definitely, probably in the UK, possibly in Europe. I know Toys R Us kind of did one, but I don't think they broadcasted on television. But our commercial team were already, there was someone there, one of our champions, Alan Hall, great kind of AI creator, I guess. We were looking at how we could use it to kind of develop these kind of, we've got a commercial team that make adverts as well. We thought, could they use it to kind of to make adverts for certain businesses? So we looked at small to medium-sized businesses that couldn't really advertise on local television. They could afford it, but they couldn't afford to make the ad. An ad would cost, a traditional ad, really poor ad, would cost about like 50K, and they didn't really have that money. So we were like, could we do it with AI? And it would be low budget, but this would be for smaller shops, so they wouldn't care. Not wouldn't care, that's probably bad. Like, you know what I mean? It would kind of be on their level.
To a certain extent, there's a certain level of quality you have to reach with AI that makes it acceptable. You can probably still tell that it's AI, but that puts it at a level where the business opportunity of having something at 5,000 euro all of a sudden makes sense versus the 50,000 euros would have had to invest on the creative side of things. And I think that that's one of the overall trends in AI is like it's not fully ready to replace the top level, you know, human work that is being put into certain pieces of the ecosystem, but it does serve a lot of purposes for all those opportunities that haven't been tackled quite yet, I think.
Like, yeah, you're right. It would never have like outdone Nike or Uber for the when they spend millions on that. But for a small shop that has maybe two outlets or something like that. So we did one for Sheepbridge Interior, which is like one store in Erie, Northern Ireland, and then we did a travel one. So it's a travel book. I can't quite remember. And we spanned these up. It took us like a week to create them. Even we ideated on like ChatGPT, and they went with them ideas, and then we like scripted it, storyboard, created it, the two of us in a week. It was like high pressure. It was a lot of work, but we got it done. I think prices were like £1,000 to get it made for, which is a huge reduction. And then they can spend money with ITV advertising it. And the Sheepbridge Interior guy was like super happy about it. He loved it. We did like a potato, so he had a sofa stool. So it was a couch potato. I mean, really basic idea, but it worked. He loved it. He got on TV, like happy days. And then that would let snowball. I know that's kind of like, we've got an automation process there where we've tried to like streamline that whole process. And then that kind of broke down a lot of doors throughout the other side of the company where they were looking at it and be like, well, these have done this. Could we do something else? And that's kind of what we needed. We kind of needed this kind of, call it like shock and inspire, like just jump into one part of the business, do something that nobody expected, and then everybody creates this kind of FOMO, or like, I'm now interested. And it works a lot better than doing slides and saying like, here's a slide, we can do this and this and this. And this is like, oh, there we go. Here's a finished article. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like for any innovation cycle, right? You need the first experience that goes live that somebody takes a risk with, and that then inspires people, and they're like, "Oh, I want to catch up on it now."
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how we started about 3 years ago. We did that. And then we've been doing loads of different items since. And it's been crazy. Some of it has been, I like to say we've had no failures, and we've just had things that we've learned from. We do this, then we move. Like, we don't really have a failure. Um, I mean, one interesting use case we're using this tool called QuickChair, which is like a smart editing tool. And there's plenty of smart editing tools out there in the world. So I don't know, there's 12 Labs, Mobile Labs, all these, not like sticking my flag in one company there. I tried it a few times. I went to like different parts of the business and was like, look, we've got this like smart editing tool. So it can like take large amounts of footage, like days worth of footage, like rushes, and then you can give it like an edit of how you would normally edit this show, or you can give it whatever, some instructions. But if you give it like how this show is normally edited, it'll rough edit it. So not a finished program, but it'll take, say, 5 days worth of rushes, drop them into their bins so you can know what's happening. 'Cause a lot of shows are formulaic, so they kind of. I did that in like half an hour. So like hugely a bit like, wow. We're all a bit shocked, but not many productions took it up. They kind of ignored it, sat on it, and like, I don't get what's happening here. Like, just showed you this huge saving. Is it like fear of jobs? What is it you don't believe it's good enough? And we ran some tests. No one kind of took it up, and then had to like, and I find with all this kind of innovation, I guess, had to find someone who was desperate. So I found like through a contact, and I feel like when I go in the office, all I'm doing is wandering around that room hustling. I found someone on Love Island, and they were doing their casting, and they filmed like hundreds of people, interview them for hours, and ask them, I don't know, 10 questions about their life. And then they have to like coordinate that and then send them on to other people saying, but what did Sam say? Like about, I don't know, on X's or what this and that. And then they have to send it on. It's really time consuming. And we're like, just drop this in, bam. And it doubled their output, and they loved it. And they were like, I think it tripled their output. They're like, this is amazing. And it wasn't a fear of jobs either. It was like, well, next year, let's interview like double the amount of people so we get better like
It's and we have the
content.
time to process it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've started to notice with that tool, this smart editing, you're now seeing the bottlenecks in other places of the business where you didn't expect. So that was a bottleneck. No, it's not. But now working out where this footage came from or some of that is now that's a problem. And you're like, how do we solve that? And I think that's what we want to see in all different types of business now. AI is going to kind of sort something out, but then there'll be this kind of human bottleneck where we like struggling with it. And that's the way you're going now, what I think. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. I'm still loving it.
It sounds exciting from this side of the table. I had just had one question on that. It sounds like a little bit like when you're in a SaaS business like us, there's very much the what you productize and what you serve as a professional service, right? So the example that you're giving us for Love Island, it sounds like it's something that's not standardized across the company, but it's something where you brought in a tool to help with a particular moment. To what extent have you managed to standardize some of the Gen AI workflows inside the company versus like use it? Because I think that that's the big challenge of how to be able to take it to the next level. It's not, a point AI opportunistically, but standardize how you use AI for the bigger picture.
Yeah, that is it's difficult. I like to walk away from that point and say, well, look, I've given you the magic and now it's you to figure it out. That's not necessarily true. With the smart editing, we've kind of used that a lot for casting, and we're still kind of trying to work out where else we can use it. And ITV is quite like in our production spec, we're kind of like multiple companies. So, and we call it like producer's choice and give them like the option to do what they want. So if they don't want to do it, they kind of got their own control. So they keep their own creativity. But we do try and have this plethora of tools to say like, well, we've used it here on casting and we can use it elsewhere.
Well, just jumping off of that conversation, right? Because it was super interesting to hear how you got in a room and connected technology to the creative process of helping Love Island program. And that's interesting because we're really in that process internally on how to bring in AI and also engagement, right? Because we see it's the other big trend that people don't want so much of a passive experience. They want a more lean forward type of experience. So how do you actually connect the dots? Like, have you seen AI have an impact in terms of bridging the gap also? And just what you were talking about, like different programs working separately and more working like product with editorial, with commercial teams and that? Or is it something that is still very hard to date?
I think we're in the early days of that. We're trying to build something that kind of like an aggregator that kind of pools all our information in. We've got a knowledge base and they're being connected, like this kind of agentic kind of setup. but we're still early days in that.
And so just out of curiosity, so you guys have sports assets on ITV, obviously. Have you had great use cases around sports, like, through Gen AI enabling to create something that was a bit different in terms of making those emotions felt by the consumers?
I do right now have something that I was maybe a bit too late for the World Cup, but I'm working on it right now, and I think it's kind of out there. I believe like content will no longer just be viewable. I think this is coming very soon. All content now, kind of people will be able to manipulate it to how they want, um, through kind of like MCP, kind of access and like kind of Anthropic and stuff, or Codex. And once someone develops like an app where you can do this, but I think you'd be able to say, watch the World Cup. And then I could ask my app, like, show me all of Marcus Rashford's touches in the left hand side of the pitch. And then I could send that stat to my friends, or like show me the highlights of that, or his like failures, something like that. Oh, I'm not picking on Marcus Rashford, he's great. But kind of like, I think that you're going to start seeing like this the sports stats that you see from TV companies, like the show, I'm going to have to improve, because not just like your influencers, I think the person just on their phone will have that ability, but then they may also have that ability, like see in Love Island, and be like, I don't know, Marie and Sam are I think they're going to get it on. Show me their like kind of heat map of where they've been around the villa. That's going to be visualized. I think that's probably going to be everywhere in like 6 months, depending on like what Claude and Anthropic, how they do it, especially with these new models when they're released. If they get released, if non-Americans can have them, uh, we're going to start seeing content is something for everybody. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm just thinking from a broader perspective, right? Connecting all the dots from a video infrastructure workflow down to the front end user experience feels like the technology is there. But when you mention something like that, it means alignment with the production organization to kind of have all the feeds, and then the acceptance internally that that can give you access to feed that has been picked not to be shown. And then afterwards, a front end experience where I am actually going to be able to say, I want this, and I want it well served around all my content, connecting video content and data. So while technically it's somehow already possible, I don't realize to what extent it's going to become a political topic also inside an organization to genuinely not be in full control of the end experience that you're giving to user X versus user Y.
Yeah, yeah, 100% agree. And we'll have that problem. And it won't just be for sports, it'll be like for a TV show. It's like almost like you're going to, instead of the director's cut, it's the viewer's cut, almost like kind of taking it. But we've already had this. Like, there's been like content made that wasn't what the original creator wanted, like the idea of it, I think. And then viewers have kind of took it on. I think, wasn't it the Joker 2 or something, like, or Joker 1? But I think it had a certain theme, but then it related to some other people and then they took it on. And there's been lots of media that has this, but I think that's just going to become more prevalent. And you're going to see people making their own kind of, not everybody, but I think definitely in the sports world, there'll be a lot more stats available.
Yeah. And around the content actually, because I'm just thinking, right, as you said, like the segmentation or hyper personalization of a piece of content for an end user is something that's incredibly powerful, and a lot of organizations are looking at it. And there's also the element of retention on a platform and building kind of community types of experiences, because I want to share what I have to Paul and potentially vice versa. How beneficial, and what are some of the things that you might have done in terms of increasing the lifetime value of a piece of content to make sure that people stick around longer, participate to it longer, and create more stickiness to the experience?
Yeah, we haven't done anything too public about that yet, but we have like experimented with like shows like characters being able to interact with characters. So, before a show starts, you can like put in like a pre all the information about the characters that you. That's not going to give away ideas, but then customers could talk about them and then ask them. Then once that episode airs, it like kind of never finishes, because imagine this for like Game of Thrones, like all that like canon in the background or Star Wars, where you can like start talking to these characters and builds that engagement and keeps them on. And then when you add this kind of, I'm going to remix it or I'm going to get extra information, they can stay on the website and keep looking. That's what I think is fantastic about it. I think like a lot of on sports, like I'm sticking with sports because the World Cup's on, but when the World Cup finishes, like maybe if one of the sports channels has the ability for me to start asking it and me asking questions and like, well, what happened when this happened? How often did the goalkeeper pass it out? How long did how many long kicks did he make? I can ask all those questions, which I think's powerful. And then if you want to make money, you put an advert. I get from like, every time you share it from Paul with a, Domino's advert in it.
And that's interesting because it also goes in the direction of more the bi-directional kind of relationship that an ITV would have with its audience. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for you guys in terms of making sure that you leverage the power of AI to not only think and you started mentioning it, right? Like around the coverage and personalization of of the broadcast or of the video content that you receive, whichever platform you receive it from. Um, do you see a lot of power in terms of making that relationship more bi-directional because Gen AI specifically allows to power so many experiences and so much engagement and so many good ideas around how to create rebounds off one single piece of content? Where do you see the industry going, I guess, with AI on that topic?
I think it'll start with kind of influencers. They'll probably, all these companies will hire influencers that they promote and they'll give them access to the content and let them probably give them behind the scenes footage as well. So they'll have a bit more to play with. And that'll be this kind of interaction with the audience. And then they'll slowly drip feed in, but to the audience, let the audience do it. But I say this is all on the audience. I say this is being the future, being like kind of like Uber and Airbnb, where like people will make content, we'll stream it, and we'll be like the authority of like we believe this is where this content, this is what we wanted this content to be, and we believe it's good content, and then people will kind of remix it, change it, turn it into games. Like you could be watching a cooking show, and then I could say, so no, me and my son are learning French, and then every time they're about to put in an ingredient, I want you to pause it, and we're going to play like a French language game, test on how do I say ginger in French, and then you be able to do something like that, and that's where I think it's all going, kind of like a throwback to teletext and CFAX, like coming back like Bamboozler, where you can like play these interactive games, but you can play it almost live with the TV.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm thinking about what I know of, right? Like our technology that has the most power is whenever you put out a simple who is the best player for England currently? Is it Declan Rice or is it Harry Kane? Bring that simple prompt, make it interactive and currently, so you scan a QR code, you'll reply to it, then it becomes a topic for the hosts on the television. We don't see as much engagement through some of our tools than by those very simple use cases where whatever is coming out of the users is actually used editorially to be part of the conversation. It's those simple things, but this is like the A of an A to Z journey in terms of interactivity and how you make it participative. And we have other partners who have been doing it like more at the community level, make sure that there's, full live chats and interact and more Twitch style. Like, and guess what? It works for France Television, like public broadcaster in France. It works because that kind of community element actually does have value. And it's just that interactivity potential that is incredibly strong. And with Gen AI, you now also have a possibility to create interactivity that is valuable because you don't need to be a subject matter expert.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Or you can send in to the hosts, like, oh, I disagree with this, like what you've said. Here's my interpretation. Maybe they get popular, and then I don't know. I think this is all coming, and I think it'll be and like for companies like ITV, it's a massive positive as well because we've also got a huge archive, like massive, that we've been filming since like the 50s. I just sitting there to like, well, what can we do with this? And I think we should like open that, like with guardrails and rights involved, of course, but could we then open that to the public? And then, like, you could have, for example, customers being like watching Harry Kane about to take a penalty, scanning his kind of like his gait and how he's standing, looking at his last stats, but then also like scanning, like also check their archive for the last like 50 years of pen takers for England. What are the chances of him scoring?
And that's why I was asking about your Gen AI role, because obviously agentic AI is the next most powerful thing to help with that storyline, right? Gen AI allows you to create it, but agentic workflows, with like where you kind of have a coordination or an orchestration layer on top of it, allows you to actually just use natural language to actually go prompt all those types of environment. How have you worked on agentic AI workflows as well that have shown efficient, and like what is your overall vision on it?
Like, so we have put a lot of effort into these agentic workflows, and a lot of them are kind of basic, kind of smaller RAG models, like do this, look at this data, come back with this. If like A or B do C, these are suggested things. But I don't know, reading like all this news about like Fable, maybe I'm mad, but and hearing what people have been doing with it, I think a lot of that for most use cases is just going to be one single prompt. And one of these tools is going to be powerful enough as well. If I'm like, source me some clips that are suitable for a 6-year-old within Coronation Street, like that's all I need to say. And I know it will do it. Like I know it will check. The, there'll be less checks. There'll be less kind of like lines in between of like, well, I've sourced this information, I pulled this, I've done this, now this is my role to do this. I think it will kind of agentically do it all in itself in this one kind of system.
You need to have a good infrastructure for then your AI agents to just go and tap into it, and just like technology creatively to take it to the next level in terms of those Love Island programs that have been working well for 20 years. But there's probably going to be an element of they will end up slowing down if they don't keep modernizing in some kind of way. So it's a little bit that, okay, how do you use technology to take the best of what's going on out there in social media, influencers, and so on, to bring some of that inside your own experiences. And I guess that beyond human creativity, now there are suggestions that should be able to help with data driven decisions versus, you know, opinionated human being decisions.
Yeah, I think it's very important. Like, of course, you can get a lot from data and it tells you, but the added your question is data will never tell you what's happening in the future. You can look at the past and it can help you and guide you, but there's always something like in the moment that enculturate changes and you can never predict it. No, and I still feel like the AI, what we need to be careful about is like kind of trusting it too much and kind of accepting it and having this kind of, I want to say human approach, because humans I think are generally lazy, and as long as it's keep on serving you something, most people will generally just accept it. And we need to be careful of that and have full control of it. Like, look, is this actually what is happening? Is this true? Or, and kind of understanding that sometimes having intuition about something is actually quite valuable, and data can always be skewed to meet the person holding the data as kind of, wants and needs. I don't know. I'm kind of like sitting a data team, but
I think I had a friend that was in the sports data industry and who always said it's a tool, right? It's not something to replay. And remember in 2010, data coaches were scared of data because they're like, oh, potentially it's going to replace me. No, it's just an additional tool that you can't ignore, but that you have to know how to cope with. Otherwise, anybody could be a coach, but there's so much more that goes into that. I feel like AI is the same thing. People will be able to use AI the right way, but there's nothing more annoying than when you get a presentation of someone that, for that matter, we use Claude, and I can tell it's an American AI tool and it sounds very American in your presentations. And when you're pitching to an English person, you don't want your presentation to sound nor to look American, right? So there's those elements. Yeah, there's just so much that you can tell that from people using AI well versus people starting to use AI as a potential substitute for their work, but it doesn't work that way.
no, yeah, but that's with a lot of things, isn't it? It's like loads of presentations where you kind of do one or you build an app and you're like, oh, really impressed with this app or presentation. I think it's really cool. But then when you show it to someone and you kind of see these apps, I'm like, oh, I've seen all these curved edges and I know that kind of color. And I'm like, this has just been like vibe coded really quickly. And it's like the same as like, it's kind of, someone was telling me though, this kind of started happening in the 90s. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like everything looked the same. I feel like we're in that kind of phase where all these presentations and apps look the same, but there'll soon be a where we move away and everyone gets bored of it. And my app needs to be better. It needs to be more individualistic. And that's what I think, which I think what's important for companies to hold on to is like hold on to your kind of personal approach.
Yeah, no, no, but I mean, I think it's so true, right? Just to compare it to not necessarily apples with apples, but it's like a good sales rep. A good sales rep is not applying one script to every single person you're talking to. You want some personality and some things that AI will never be able to replace. I can like somebody that's funny, that has a dark humor, or that can be like kind of a grumpy person. It's just a question of like, what's the personality you put into it that will make a difference between a lot of between the different pitches when it comes to a sales pitch. Same thing with AI. Everybody can ask the same prompt to chat GPT in the right way, or in one, there can be one subject for everyone that you actually go and chat GPT. It will be about who prompts it and works it the best way to have the best outcome. And then there's going to be the human resource on top of it. It's just not enough by itself. And it doesn't replace all this creativity that I believe it can help, but it can't replace it ultimately.
Yeah. And that's important for a lot of companies to realize is that you will have all this kind of efficiencies, things will be speeded up, people will be doing things quicker, but don't get rid of them. If you keep them, they're the kind of guardians of the output because it's really about output and is that good? So if you're being able to do more, you need still more people to kind of have the brains to see what's good and what's not. And I think sometimes you might see companies where they'll cut staff because they're getting these efficiencies, but then they'll just tail off and then they'll have to re-employ them.
One of the things is definitely the pace at which AI is moving and the pace of the broadcast industry. How do you like what have been your tricks, or how do you see reducing the gap to make sure that the broadcast industry benefits from AI as fast as possible?
So when I talk about AI governance, that's got to be like tight. You don't want like data leaking. You don't want kind of brands being affected. So personally, I try and be close to like data protection, to our legal team, to our architecture team, to cyber, and I try and build close relationships with them. So like when I want to move, I can move really quickly. Otherwise, if you don't have that good relationship, it just gets slowed up like over and over, and it can take months to push something through. And as we know with AI, it's moving like so quick that like I talk about this like content. I'm really excited about it. Content changing and being more than TV and being interactable and changeable. But maybe in 3 months something else will come up, and I've spent 3 months trying to like sort this all out. To like, can we like give it to our viewers? So I think that's really important, and almost having like guidelines like everyone in your company kind of knows like, look, you can use all these tools. Don't put this data in. Like, or have we got an option where we can like kind of white box our data so it's like clean and it doesn't give any secrets away. So I think that's a step like all companies should have clear guidelines.
It's a very short answer, at least. But once you'll have figured all of this out, where do you see the biggest impact for you 5 years from now? If you're still on this journey.
I think we'll be able to like sit in stadiums and like view content, like live sports content, as you feel like you're there, but able to sit, like take the watch party to another level, but sit with your friends and possibly even like sit with like this AI version of the coach or maybe past players and like talk to them and get information from them. I kind of see this virtual reality world where that'll happen. But I don't know if that's 5 years, maybe that's a bit longer, but that's where I think I would like to go. I think that would be an interesting experience, being able to experience, like, I'd love to go to an NFL game in like the States. Maybe the next best thing is like a virtual headset of sitting there and like, maybe I could ask even Tom Brady some questions. His sponsored adverts, like also, drink Budweiser, something like that.
I guess you don't know, but we come from the virtual reality world. So 2015, we we're trying to build those types of experiences. And I think there's a little route to go down to be able to get there. And I think hardware makes it complicated. But I guess that would be a subject for a whole other topic. And unfortunately, we are at time. But that opens up a good food for thought for everybody who listened to this podcast. And anyway, it was super insightful to have a little bit there is not a written playbook around how to deploy AI inside an organization, especially one as big as ITV. But I'm sure some people will be able to take away some options of how to do it in the right way.
Yeah, I hope I hope that was super helpful. And if anyone wants to get in touch, get in touch and we can chat. I also have my own community, the Creative AI Network. We've got like 3,000 members. We host events with some of the best AI content creators in Britain. Like come down and talk about what they've done. It's like a it's like a free event that we hold, and it's just kind of non-corporatized and kind of fun and just like, yes, show people what you've done and explain it and like share information. It's a really good community, and we try and hold events every 3 months. But check us out on LinkedIn, Creative AI Network.
Yeah, nice. And we'll make sure to share that when we publish the episode. Paul, thanks a lot. Really appreciate the time you spent with us today to explain a little bit the intricacies of deploying Gen AI and inside an organization like ITV. And everyone, if you like it, don't hesitate to share and talk about in your network. And see you soon for the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Future of Fandom. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and follow LiveLike on LinkedIn for more conversations with the people shaping what's next in the world of sports and media. Until next time, keep building for fans, not just users.